Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare.
Don't change your baby's diaper on the tray table. This also happens all the time. It's unsanitary and people use the tray table to eat, put their personal things on, etc. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Flight attendants of Reddit, what do the passengers not know?
Number 1.
Is this limited to flight attendants? I'm a ticket agent and, boy, the stories I could tell. One thing people definitely should know is that a surprising amount of the delays that happen are due to passengers. Yep, passengers. That one guy who threw a fit because he can't take 4 ounces of liquid through TSA and decided the gate agent was a great target to take out their wrath on caused your delay. So did that family that decided it was a great idea to bring 3 strollers and 2 car seats for their single child. That sweet old grandma who insists she doesn't need help getting onto the plane, but can't walk faster than 1 step every minute. Gotta wait for her. And that last delay you had that the agent told you was due to maintenance was thanks to some guy trying to hijack the smoke alarm in the plane. There are lots of delays for other reasons, weather being a big one. And don't even say that there's no weather where you are. There isn't, but that doesn't mean there's not weather somewhere else, but you'd be amazed at how many are caused by the people around you while you're trying to board the plane. This is also part of why gate agents are so strict about cutting off loading times. Airline employees love to help when they can, but there are times when we kind of wish we could turn to the nearest wall and whack our heads against it a few times just to improve the situation.
Number 2.
I used to work with elderly people and one of my clients was a former pilot that finally quit when he realized in the middle of a flight his dementia had progressed and he couldn't remember where he was supposed to be flying to. Meaning he had been flying for a commercial airline with dementia for quite some time before that.
Number 3.
A flight attendant told me that in the event of a situation where passengers have to cover their heads, you do not lock your fingers overhead but place one hand on top of the other. If something falls on your hand/head, you'll still have one good hand to use.
Number 4.
I dated a flight attendant for a while. One thing I haven't seen mentioned is that sometimes delays are caused by flight attendants not showing up and the airline scrambling to get a backup scheduled. Like a flight attendant was partying too hard last night and decided to call off 2 hours before that $1,500 cross-ocean flight you just popped on. She loved to party as did a lot of her coworkers and were often hungover or out of it on flights. Even though pay was shit, their union made it very hard to get fired, so call-offs were kind of no big deal.
Number 5.
When I was a toddler, this was pre-9/11, also, the first time I ever flew I was terrified and bawling my eyes out convinced I was going to die. I think I was 5 or 6. Maybe 7? Either way, the FAs tried to calm me down by talking to me, bringing me snacks etc. Finally they gave up and spoke to the pic, who sent the co-pilot back to invite me up to the cockpit to see all the cool gadgets they get to play with. I went, and he talked me through everything and showed me what everything did. He even let me switch the seatbelt sign on. And now, here I am almost 30 years later, flying my own airplane. Best advice I can give in your case is to buy a nice, comfortable pair of noise-blocking headphones, put on some music that won't amp you up, and close your eyes.
Number 6.
It is nearly impossible for turbulence to crash a plane, even the bad stuff. Turbulence is only dangerous because of things flying around the cabin, and that includes people not wearing seat belts. Most accidents happen at takeoff and landing, that's why we make you do all of those things before takeoff and landing. The plane can move like a seesaw, so seats nearest to the wings can have the least turbulence and seats farthest away will be the worst. Since the altitude of the plane, simulated to 8,000, thins your blood, alcohol will hit you harder. We were told 1 in the air for 2 on the ground. Also, it is illegal to be intoxicated on a plane and it is illegal for us to get you drunk. So if we cut you off, don't argue, we may serve you later if you're nice. Edit, sounds like I was told wrong about turbulence. The back is the worst but the front is better than over the wings. Yeah, I learned something.
Number 7.
My late mom was a Delta stewardess for 33 years. She used to tell awesome PG stories, and I'm sure she had 100 more that were unfit for my innocent ears. Like any kid, I never really paid attention, but most of the ones I remember were about famous or drunk people. Or famous drunk people. One common story was about the Delta miracles. Passengers in wheelchairs would board the plane before everyone else, but they had to wait for everyone else to disembark before they could get rolled out. It is apparently common for people to be healed during mid-flight and no longer need assistance when they reach their destination. Edit, my apologies to the folks that have legit uses for one-way wheelchair trips. Let's meet in the middle and accept that there is indeed some humor to be seen here.
Number 8.
I was a cabin crew for 5 years, long haul only, and whilst we've all passed the exams and tests and blah 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 and have a refresher every year, you never really know how anyone will react in any kind of emergency. Firemen and police are tested on a weekly basis, but in the 5 years I was crew, there was nothing I personally experienced that put any of the proper training into use, and I'd like to think I'd not freeze or fall to pieces, but you just never know. So definitely pay a bit of attention for the 3 mins of the safety demo and figure out where the nearest exit and its alternatives are, because you never know, you might end up having to help yourself. Edit. I will also wager the knowledge of flight attendants on this thread shall be turned into a Daily Mail news article for tomorrow.
Number 9.
I'm a flight attendant. So many incidents occur on the plane that everyday passengers don't see or consider. My last flight, an elderly man accidentally shit on the floor, stepped in it, and walked on like it was nothing. Do not walk around barefoot. Pee and poop happens all over. I feel like I witness an accident regularly, in their seat or in the lav. People get nosebleeds, or their wounds open. Obviously when we land, it is thoroughly cleaned. But in flight, our resources are limited. Don't change your baby's diaper on the tray table. This also happens all the time. It's unsanitary and people use the tray table to eat, put their personal things on, etc. Lastly, it is not the responsibility of a flight attendant to lift your bag. There are multiple injuries caused from flight attendants lifting heavy bags to be friendly, and then they're out of the job for months to a year, on average. If you pack it, you lift it. If it's too heavy for you, it's too heavy for us. Happy flying, Neil.
Number 10.
On a Delta flight a few months ago, I sat down and my seat belt felt wet. I smelled my hands and vomited. I asked the flight attendant if someone had thrown up in the seat before me, and she said I'm sorry. I watched them clean it up 3 times. Disgusted, I asked for a different seat. Nope, full flight. Couldn't take it later, because we had my son and it was getting late. So, I went to unbuckle my seat, and little pieces of vomit fell out from the buckle onto my lap. Yup. Delta Airlines. Washed my hands, they gave me 10k bonus miles and kept me sufficiently drunk on the flight that my wife had to drive home. I did shower as soon as I walked in the door and threw my clothes in the wash. Still amazed at that one, considering I was told by a former plane crew that replacing seat belts and seat cushions is a pretty quick and painless process. Edit. Wow. This blew up. Some background info. Was a Delta flight out of Midway to Atlanta. Midway is not a hub, Atlanta is. I never was scared of any biohazard issues. I tend to think that most viruses and bacteria die after leaving a body, host, for some time. Of course I'm not a science major, IT nerd here. So I'm sure someone can correct me on that. But that's why I wasn't concerned at the time. You all have changed that. I was wearing jeans, but I'm sure if I had on shorts and someone's partially digested Thai food landed on my leg, I might have freaked out. And some credit to the flight crew for being as accommodating and nice as possible. Edit 2. Wow, okay, so I could have contracted Ebola from this vomit. Thanks.
Number 11.
As a former aviation journalist I can tell you a few things. Yes, on transoceanic flights there is a cabin for crew to get some sleep. No, you won't be invited in for fun times. On some newer planes there's also a hold for people who have died on the flight. No, you won't be invited in for fun times either. If you piss off the cabin crew they will fart on you. The pressure on aircraft makes you naturally gassy and it's easy to puff one off in the face of an annoying git while bending down to speak to someone on the opposite side of the aisle. If a meal service is on offer, go for the kosher option, so you know it was prepared that day.
Number 12.
Ex-crew here, few interesting tidbits I remember. Rubbish bags are referred to as gash bags. If you're on a short or mid-haul flight then most airlines just have an hour or so turnaround, for cleaning and security checks, and the same crew will then man the flight home. The cleaning on these turnarounds isn't too thorough, a quick mop and hoover is about it usually. Sometimes we went through with bug spray on certain routes. It was fairly common for people to leave phones, tablets, wallets etc. in seat pockets which we would then find during security checks on turnaround. We can't take them back to the base airport due to security, so they get handed over to a dispatcher with paperwork. We've just got to hope the dispatcher doesn't pocket them. Don't leave dirty nappies, use needles or anything else with bodily fluids in your seat pocket. You'd probably be surprised to find out how often this happens. Not only is it gross but it's also a health hazard. That's not water on the floor in the bathroom, put your bloody shoes back on. We know if you're having nookie in the bathroom, we can also open the doors, easily, from the outside. If we say there we are then or see you next time, we might well be meaning to insult you. You get pissed quicker on board due to the air pressure, or something, and we don't tolerate drunken bullshit. It's not a bar, you don't just get thrown out by the bouncer. You get offloaded and possibly even blacklisted. If you're clearly steaming before we've even taken off, then chances are you're not going to be going anywhere. Safety and security is the first priority on board. Your comfort and happiness is just an added bonus. You haven't seen bad turbulence unless the overhead lockers have opened and you have bags falling down on top of you. In the event of a decompression, you only have a few seconds before your brain starts being starved of oxygen. Get your oxygen mask on pronto. Do not inflate life jackets inside if the plane ditches in water. If the cabin starts to fill with water, you'll be unable to swim down to the exit. There's special straps in the cockpit and the chair moves back from the controller in case you need to tie the pilot up and move him away. We have fire axes and extremely heavy emergency equipment on board, and are to stop you entering the cockpit by any means necessary. If you pay for extra legroom, then be aware that some of these seats are by uncrewed emergency exits. If you have a disability or require an extension seat belt, then we will have to move you for safety purposes. I crewed 737s and 757s aircrafts, short to mid-haul, economy only. We took our breaks, when we could, in the tiny little galleys at the front and back of the aircraft. If you see those curtains pulled, then please don't bother us unless it's actually an emergency. Another beer is not an emergency. None of these are probably that interesting. Edit, a few extras I thought I would add. I still remember the order of priorities in survival situations by pilots like wet fannies. Protection, location, water, food. Colleagues of mine used to sell their stinky old used cabin shoes to foot fetishists on eBay. You can also sell your used, unwashed tights. To any fellow crew out there, if you find yourself in an emergency situation where fire is present, whip off your nylon tights so your legs don't go up in flames. To any passengers out there, don't make the crew hate you. The farting thing mentioned in another comment is true. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.